Download the EquiUp equipment on Google Play and App Store of your mobile phone and register to publish your advertisements to customers for free and for our customers to access the lowest rates on the market.
Welcome to the Entrepreneurship Networking Program. Today we'll be talking about business regulation and SMEs. Your host, Mwila Jonathan Mpuku, and today to understand more about the topic of business regulation, we have Ms. Sharon C.K. Sichulongo, the Executive Director for Business Regulatory Review Agency, BRRA. Welcome, madam, to this program.
Thank you very much, Mwila.
Thank you. We're blessed to have you on this program. Actually, we've had a lot of SMEs trying to understand regulations when it comes to when operating in their business. So BRA, the Business Regulatory Review Agency, is a statutory body under the Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry, established by the Business Regulatory Act No. 3 of 2014. BRA is a regulatory oversight body with a goal to promote the creation of a conducive business regulatory environment that supports business development and growth. As I said, we have Mr. Longo here to help us understand more of what BRA is doing. So we'll go for a short break and we'll pick up the interview from there. Thank you.
In this fast-paced business world, Zambia needs to create a friendly business environment to remain competitive. To achieve this, the Business Regulatory Review Agency, BRRA, promotes the use of Regulatory Impact Assessment, RIA, in the formulation of regulations that affect business activity. RIA is aimed at ensuring quality regulations and reduction of regulatory burden on business. RIA assesses different regulatory options and enables the most effective and efficient option to be systematically chosen. The law requires regulatory agencies and public bodies to perform a RIA when proposing, amending, or repealing regulatory frameworks. To learn more about the operations of BRRA, visit www.brra.org.zm or email us on info@brra.org.zm. You can call us on 259-165. We are situated at the corner of Fairley and Jacaranda Roads, Ridgeway, Lusaka, Zambia. BRRA, promoting a conducive business regulatory environment.
Welcome back again to the Entrepreneurship Networking Program. As we said, we're talking about business regulation and SMEs. What is the Business Regulatory Review Agency impact to SMEs? So as we put in the beginning that we have Ms. Shulongo to help us understand more about business regulation and also the Business Regulatory Review Agency. What is it all about and what are they doing to change the business concept in Zambia? So I'll just quickly jump into it, Ms. Shulongo. What is the mandate of the BRA?
Thank you, Mwila. The Business Regulatory Review Agency has a twofold mandate as we are looking at all issues related to regulation of business activity. So the first part of our mandate involves reviewing and approving all policies and laws that are aimed at regulating business activity. And the review and the approval is aimed at ensuring that all interventions that are being put in place by public bodies and indeed regulatory agencies are not too burdensome for the businesses and that they actually are backed up by a piece of legislation. We have had before a situation where regulatory agencies are putting in place regulations which is introducing licenses or even permits, levies, and fees, which are not backed by law. So our role as a Business Regulatory Review Agency is to ensure that whatever intervention, which is a regulatory framework that is being put in place, is indeed backed by law and that it is serving an intended purpose. And by that we mean it should be indeed to regulate a sector that which is to address a challenge which is in that sector, and not merely being introduced for that particular regulatory agency to raise revenue for their operations.
Okay, yes.
That's the first part of our mandate. The second part of our mandate is to develop and coordinate the implementation of interventions that are aimed at ensuring that there is efficiency in government to business services. There are a number of interventions that we are coordinating under there, and I think we'll talk more about that as we progress with the program. But in a nutshell, that is the mandate of BRRA.
Okay. Just talking about the mandate, you spoke a lot about the law. I just wanted to understand, because like a mere person like me, I believe much of these acts and law are made in Parliament. Mm-hmm. So how does it come? How does BRA come in where the Parliament makes a certain law, or maybe when there's some budget inclusion that people will make proposals to the budget to say, okay, I want to we're proposing that this thing is changed. How does BRA come in and fill in the gap there?
Our role is basically, as I said earlier, to look at the regulatory frameworks in the country, in all sectors. So we are dealing with regulation of businesses. And our role actually starts before a regulation is put in place, before a law is put in place, which will impact on business activity. Our act, which you mentioned in your introduction, the Business Regulatory Act number 3 of 2014, requires that before a public body or a regulatory agency can make a proposal to introduce any intervention, any law or policy which will impact on business activity, before they can actually submit that proposal to cabinet, they have to first of all give us a notification as BRRA. So they give us a notification to say, we are proposing to introduce this law, we are proposing to introduce this regulation. And that has to be done at least 2 months before that proposal can be submitted to cabinet. Meaning that we are given this time for us to review that proposal and be able to engage the public body which is proposing that law, which is proposing that regulation, to see whether it will be burdensome to the businesses, and if so, BRRA does not approve. BRRA does not approve regulations that will be burdensome to the businesses, that will contribute to unnecessarily increasing the cost of doing business. So that is the provision of the Act. They first have to give us a notification. We advise them that according to the Act, they have also to undertake what we call a regulatory impact assessment. And in this regulatory impact assessment, they are reviewing their proposal and seeing what impact will it have on that sector, on the businesses that are operating in that sector. If, for instance, they're introducing a levy, if they're introducing a license, we look at what will be the cost to the businesses of that regulation, and what will be the cost to the institution that is actually proposing that regulation. Sometimes you find that a regulator may introduce a levy or a fee or a license, which will have more costs than the fees that they're actually even charging for those licenses or permits. So you are looking in the regulatory impact assessment, you're looking at both sides. And our interest mostly is the focus on what will be the impact on the businesses. Is it going to be too costly for them to comply? What are the procedures that are going to be introduced with this intervention? So that is our role. Even before those bills are taken to Parliament, we will have had this process
Already, yeah.
with the proposing regulators.
Okay. All right. I'm sure you've mentioned a few of the functions for BRA. Okay. What other functions does Business Regulatory Review Agency have? Like, what other functions other than this mandate, but also the functions that?
One of our functions is also to maintain what we call an electronic registry, which we call the e-registry in short.
Okay.
This is a database basically, which is accessible by all,
Okay.
containing regulations in specific sectors. So wherever you are as a business, as a citizen, be it within Zambia or outside Zambia, you can access this e-registry to get information about the various regulations that apply in a sector that you may want to start a business in.
Yes.
So this e-registry is our function. We maintain it. We ensure that the information that is on the e-registry is up to date, and that it is indeed the correct information. It gives you, it enhances transparency.
Yeah.
We are also charged with the responsibility of coordinating the regulatory services centers.
Okay.
These are centers which are one-stop shops for business registration and licensing. So these are centers where services by multiple regulatory agencies can be accessed.
Okay.
Like currently we have 6 that are fully operational in Livingstone, in Lusaka, in Kitwe, in Chipata, in Kabwe, and in Solwezi.
Okay.
So basically it makes it easier for businesses to access these services through this one single point.
Okay.
So that's, we are also responsible for the single licensing system, which is a provision in the Act that we shall implement a single licensing system. Again, I must emphasize that these are interventions that are aimed at looking at how can we make it easier for businesses to comply with the regulations. So the single licensing system is basically allows businesses to have access to multiple multiple licenses that are offered by multiple regulatory agencies. So they do not have to have these interventions with so many of these institutions where they have to obtain these licenses, but they do that through this one single point. And currently the way we've started implementing the pilot is through we are starting through the Livingstone Regulatory Services Center. That will be the single point from where the licenses that under the tourism sector, because that's our focus for the pilots, the tourism sector. So they'll be able to access these licenses through the single point, which will be the Livingstone Regulatory Services Centers. So these are some of the functions of the agency. Of course, we are also charged with the responsibility of coming up with guidelines and standards for regulatory impact, undertaking of regulatory impact assessments, and also for consultations.
Okay.
I did mention, Muila, that consultation is a key provision in terms of the process of coming up with regulations. So we are, one of our functions is to come up with those guidelines and standards for regulatory impact assessments and also for consultation of stakeholders when it comes to coming up with regulations that will impact businesses.
Oh, okay. That's very good. Actually, I didn't actually know that there's actually a body that's actually sitting to actually spearhead some of these policies. And let me just jump straight to where our core business is in terms of SMEs. How does BRA come in terms of the programs, to help promote SMEs. SMEs, if you can see, Ministry of SME has just come in. Of course, SMEs have been there for a while and actually been sitting with actually the Minister of Commerce. But now the government thought of actually having it aside so that it's able to, operate independently. So how has the Business Regulatory Review Agency come in to help promote the SMEs?
Thank you for that question, Mwila. Our act is actually very categorical about the need to ensure that we are promoting growth of the SMEs. For instance, the act provides that when regulating small businesses especially, consideration has to be made on the size of that business. Okay, and they should not be regulated, for instance, in the same way that a large business will be regulated.
Exactly.
And one of the programs that we are implementing relates to risk-based regulation. We are doing sensitization of specifically the local authorities on risk-based regulation with the support by the World Bank.
Okay.
Risk-based regulation, simply put, requires that you do not regulate a small business in the same way that you are regulating a large business, in the sense that the risks that may be coming from operations by a small business cannot compare with the risks that may be coming from a large business in terms of maybe public health issues, for instance, or even issues related to protection of the environment. A small business is likely to have much less risks related to those issues compared to a large business. So basically what we're trying to promote is, as you are regulating these businesses, consider the risks that they may be posing, and meaning that if I am a small business, I do not expect to have to comply to so many regulations compared to this larger business, which may have greater risks in terms of safety, public health issues. Yeah. And then we're also looking at making it easier for these small businesses to comply with the regulations. The regulatory services centers are aimed at ensuring that the services are brought to one location, and this makes it very easy for small businesses because they know I only touch one place. For me I need only to go to one place. For me to be able to get all my registrations and obtain my licenses, if I don't have to move from place to place, and therefore my costs are less. And we are trying to make procedures simple. The Act also emphasizes that procedures must be simplified. That is also meant to help, particularly the small businesses. Because if you make the procedures too complicated, you discourage me as a small business who's just starting, and I have to navigate a maze of regulations. I get discouraged right from the start, and then it becomes too costly for me. So those are the interventions that we are looking at. And also I mentioned that we review the regulations, the laws and the policies before they are put in place. We also have a deliberate focus on what will be the impact on particularly the small businesses.
Yes.
Okay. So even as we are reviewing the regulatory impact assessment reports that are done by the regulators that are introducing these interventions, we are also, one of our checklists is what will be the impact on special groups, vulnerable groups, and the SMEs also. Okay. So that is what BRRA is doing as a contribution to help promote growth of the SMEs.
Okay, that's very clear. But then, just trying to understand, is there a simpler way of how SMEs can actually approach the Business Regulatory Review Agency in terms of, should an SME, a company, just stand up and say, let me just go straight to BRRA and lodge in a complaint about the regulatory policy that I'm not happy about? have you made a streamlined way, like, other than the fact that there are regulated centers, but also is there any other way that businesses can actually go to before they can actually come to BRA?
For us, we have, first of all, monitoring of the regulatory environment as one of our key programs. And as we are monitoring, we engage the various business associations and the chambers of commerce to understand the challenges that they are facing. We also encourage businesses through their associations or the chambers of commerce to communicate with us any challenges that they may be facing in their various sectors. And we've received a lot of interventions that these business associations and the chambers of commerce put through to help address these challenges that are in the sectors. There are sector associations which the SMEs can actually go through to say these are the challenges that we are facing, and those are communicated to us. We sometimes receive individual submissions, but we do receive those, but we prefer that these businesses go through their associations or their chambers of commerce, so that the issues can be addressed more broadly. And that way we don't get burdened. You know, there's so many companies.
Yes.
There are so many SMEs that are doing business. And if we are to receive communication from each and every one of them, it may be difficult for us to address those timely. But if they're coming from the business associations or the chambers of commerce, it's easier for us, because then there could be even other issues that this particular SME that is facing a specific challenge may not understand or may not be aware about, which the business associations may also have an input into. So this is why we encourage communication with us. We have an email address, info@brra.org.zm, through which these business associations can communicate to us and highlight whatever challenges that they are facing.
Exactly.
And we do ensure that we have further engagements with the regulatory agencies that are involved or that are supposed to be contributing to finding a solution to those challenges. We engage them. We also make our recommendations through our ministry, which is the Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry. And that way, a solution is eventually arrived at,
yes.
Because we will have these engagements with all the stakeholders involved, and we'll engage government through our ministry, which is the Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry.
Oh, great. Now we're running towards the end of the program, so we'll just take a quick break and we'll see how we can conclude with Ms. Chilongo on some of the regulations that the government has put in place.
In this fast-paced business world, Zambia needs to create a friendly business environment to remain competitive. To achieve this, the Business Regulatory Review Agency, BRRA, promotes the use of Regulatory Impact Assessment, RIA, in the formulation of regulations that affect business activity. RIA is aimed at ensuring quality regulations and reduction of regulatory burden on business. RIA assesses different regulatory options and enables the most effective and efficient option to be systematically chosen. The law requires regulatory agencies and public bodies to perform a RIA when proposing, amending, or repealing regulatory frameworks. To learn more about the operations of BRRA, visit www.brra.org.zm or email us on info@brra.org.zm. You can call us on 259-165. We are situated at the corner of Fairley and Jacaranda Roads, Ridgeway, Lusaka, Zambia. BRRA, promoting a conducive business regulatory environment.
Welcome back to the Entrepreneurship Networking Program. Today we're talking about business regulations and policies. As you have read from the beginning of the program, we've got a body that actually regulates some of these policies that you see. You know, even as it passes in Parliament, there's a body that actually reviews these policies to ensure that businesses are operating, not adversely for the SMEs and also even for other businesses. So we were joined by Ms. Chilongo to just tell us a little bit more about the regulations and the policies that BRA does and how it's helping the SMEs. Ms. Chilongo, as we're coming towards the end of the program, do you have any closing remarks from what you've actually said, and also some encouragement you may have for SMEs, even as they are operating, the fact that, there's this CDFC, so the business activities will actually come up, and obviously there'll be a lot of policy checks that people may have. So do you have any closing remarks and encouragement to companies and SMEs out there?
Yes, indeed. First of all, we are operating the regulatory services centers where these SMEs can access services from multiple regulatory agencies. And the services under these regulatory services centers are streamlined.
Okay.
Streamlined in the sense that when I go as a small business to go and register a business name with PACRA, I go to the regulatory services center, and once I do my registration with PACRA, my details will be in the system. I will not be required to give the same details to the other regulatory agencies that are in these centers and are under what we call the one-stop shop integration system.
Oh, that's great. Yes.
So I just need to give my details once only to PACRA. ZRA won't ask me for my details. They'll pick it from the system because they are on that system.
Yes.
They'll register me for the TPIN. From there, NAPSA will also register me because they are also on the system.
Okay.
So what am I saying? I'm encouraging SMEs out there who may be thinking it's too difficult for me to formalize my business. Go to the regulatory services centers and you get an efficient service. You have the primary registrations completed within 24 hours. So those that are in Livingstone, there's a regulatory services center there. In Lusaka, we have one in the CBD. In Kitwe, there's a regulatory services center there where ZRA offices are. In Solwezi, that is our newest, we have at the Solwezi Civic Center, we have a regulatory services center. In fact, even there, you can even get your business levy from the Solwezi Council right at the regulatory services center in Solwezi.
Okay.
You also have a regulatory services center in Chipata, and in Kabwe. So it's becoming simple for SMEs to formalize their businesses. Go to the regulatory services centers, do your registration there, and you'll be able to participate even in the projects that will be under the CDF. So I think that's my final word to the SMEs.
All right. Thank you very much for according us time to come for this program. It has been a very informative interview, and I've learned a lot, and I'm sure the viewers out there have learned quite a number of things. And also, obviously, also to mention that they can actually, if they have an issue, they actually go through their associations, like you've already mentioned, other than to actually go to regulatory centers. There are a lot of other ways they can go. Even if they're not very sure, they can still go to the Ministry of Trade, Commerce and Industry, and they'll be helped from there. Yes. Thank you all for joining us. Your host, Mula Jonathan Poku. Hope to see you again. Thank you.
Download the EquiApp equipment on Google Play and App Store of your mobile phone and register to publish your advertisements to customers for free and for our customers to access the lowest rates on the market.